Okay, so this is a marketplace very similar to Uber. Instead of a car coming to me, I have an English tutor coming to me. How did you come up with the idea? Was it the supply side or the demand side? I don't know. You fill us in. How did this all come about?
So the inspiration for Cambly really came out of our own experiences trying to learn other languages. And so my co-founder, his name's Kevin, he and I both grew up here in the US and we went to school systems here. And like many Americans, we took foreign languages in school. And for me personally, like I took Spanish and I wasn't really very good at it. I was actually quite bad at it. And I kind of just thought I wasn't really a languages person. Independent of that, I love to travel. I've been all over the world. And some of the places I would go, people spoke Spanish. And what I found is that when I immersed myself in the language, I got so much better at it so much more quickly. And not just that, it was like far more rewarding than learning Spanish in a classroom environment ever was. And so what I found is it kind of took a situation where I was surrounded by people that only spoke Spanish to really like get me out of my shell. But when I did that, it was really effective way to learn. And so my co-founder, a very similar experience learning French and then visiting France. And we kind of got together around this idea, like, why can't we do that whenever we want? There's plenty of people in the world that speak those languages. They just don't happen to live near us. And we were technologists and product people. And so we thought, hey, this seems like a kind of problem that technology could solve. And so that's kind of what drew us into this. And what we wanted wasn't necessarily a professional teacher or a formal lesson. What we wanted was just like a friendly person we could practice speaking with, much like what you do when you're traveling. You strike up a conversation with someone. And as I mentioned, my co-founder Kevin wanted to learn French. I wanted to learn Spanish, but we pretty quickly realized that the world wants to learn English. Like that's the biggest market. And so we decided to focus on English. Why English? What we found is if you zoom out a bit and you look at the world, there's about 7.58 billion people in the world. 6 billion of them don't speak English. And by the way, of those 6 billion people, 1.5 billion are actively trying to learn it right now. So it's this enormous number. But I think what's interesting about this problem is it's just not a problem that those of us who speak English see every day. Like we don't have the problem ourselves. No one we know has the problem. It's not a coincidence that our friends and family speak English. Like we talk to them all the time. And so it's this sort of enormous problem in the world, but one that the English-speaking world largely missed. And I talked about my wanting to learn Spanish. And I think for those of us who speak English, we might think me learning Spanish or someone else learning English, they're kind of the same. But in reality, it's not really the case. English is very, very different. People who are learning English are doing it for like a very specific reason. They want to learn English because it can change their lives. It'll give them access to a job that they would have never been able to get otherwise, or a promotion they would have been able to get. I think access to information is a really big one. We think of like we all have information at our fingertips through the smartphone era, but actually a lot of the information on the internet is in English. A lot of really good information through podcasts like this. You think of them as being globally accessible, but they're only accessible to the subset of people that speak English. And so there's just tons of examples like this that I think those of us who speak English kind of take for granted. But if you don't know English, you feel these problems really, really acutely. And so it's a really strong need. And there's an immense demand for people who don't know English to learn it because of the economic opportunity it unlocks for them.
Hey, thanks for watching. Subscribe to this channel for more great IT thought leadership. And thanks to our partners at Salesforce Platform for making this show possible. Go to salesforce.com/newsletter to discover timely insights and useful tips tailored to your role.